So today I would like to compare three different blues. They all lean towards green. At the end of this video I will tell you and show you why out of the three pigments I only use one on my limited palette. So as usual for this type of video I first try to show you the consistency of the paint, and then I will create three swatches per pigment. The first swatch is to show you the color mass tone, the color out of the tube. The second swatch is to show you the transparency of the pigment, and the third swatch is the color mixed into the white. I use Utrecht white, which is a combination of titanium white and zinc white. Here you can see that Prussian blue, the color mass tone is absolutely beautiful. It's a very dark blue, and it's also beautiful when we mix it into the white. So this is for Prussian blue. At the end of this video I will also show you all the swatches together so you can see them correctly. So now we go to Cerulean Blue. Cerulean Blue by Utrecht. This is PB35. It's a semi-opaque pigment and is ground in safflower oil. Out of these three pigments, this one is the stiffest. It's not too stiff. It's still enjoyable to work with. It's still enjoyable to mix my color with it, but it's true, it's a little stiffer than the two other pigments. The two other pigments are really buttery smooth. Here you can also notice that the color mass tone is very light compared to the two other pigments, and it's a little less transparent. It's a semi-opaque pigment, so this is expected. But what is a little more complicated with this pigment is that the tinting strength is very weak. It's okay, it's still a very good pigment, but it's true the tinting strength is very weak. Now Phthalo Blue or Phthalo Blue by Utrecht, PB15 green shade. It's a semi-transparent pigment and it's ground in linseed oil. As for Prussian Blue, this is a very buttery smooth pigment. It's very beautiful to mix this color. It's very enjoyable to mix this color. You can notice that the color mass tone is slightly lighter than Prussian Blue, but it still remains a very dark mass tone, a very enjoyable mass tone. And then it's a semi-transparent, so it's very noticeable. I know on the swatch of the Prussian Blue, and even on that swatch, the transparency, it's not striking, but you can really feel the transparency of the pigment when you use it. There's no problem on that. And you can see here that the saturation of Phthalo Blue is a superior saturation than Prussian Blue. Prussian Blue is slightly grayer, duller, or less saturated than Phthalo Blue. Phthalo Blue is an absolute magnificent pigment. It's so beautiful. This pigment is absolutely beautiful, and this is why I'm very sad to not use that pigment on my limited palette, but it just doesn't go with my workflow, and I will show you very soon why I don't use this pigment. Here I will just show you, before telling you why I'm not using this pigment on my limited palette, I will show you all the swatches together, why I'm using only one of the three pigments. The pigment that I'm using is Cerulean Blue, and I don't use neither Phthalo Blue or Phthalo Blue, neither Prussian Blue in my limited palette. And it even better than telling you why I'm not using them, I will show you why. So here I'm just trying to show you both pigments next to each other, so you can see really the differences. They are both beautiful pigments. It's just amazing, these colors. I'm very sad that I cannot use them in my workflow and on my limited palette. These both pigments are not excluded from my studio, so they are in my studio. If I need them in my studio, I can use them in my studio, but when I paint outside, this just doesn't go in my workflow. And now I will finally show you that right now why. So now we can see, I can show you and tell you why by simply showing you how these pigments are cleaned. So these are called staining pigment, and well, there's a reason why they are called staining pigment, because this is the usual cleaning that I do on my palette when I work outside. I just clean my palette quick with my palette knife, and then if I need, I use my scraper to finish it. But now you see that at this stage my palette is not clean. the pigment has stained my palette. Even though it's a glass palette, this pigment is so powerful that it still stains my palette. If I mix any white or any yellow on top of that, the blue is gonna affect my color, and of course you don't want that. And when I'm outside, I don't want to clean my palette with solvent, and even in the studio, cleaning my palette in solvent is something I just don't like. I like that I can clean my palette with my scraper and my palette knife. And here, unfortunately, you can see it's the same result with phthalo blue or phthalo blue. This is why they are called staining pigment, and I didn't really know what it meant when I started oil painting, and with experience, I learned that with experience. You can see my palette, it's a glass palette. Even my palette knife needs to be cleaned with solvent, which is for me not doable. I don't want to do that, so I'm not using them, even though they are absolutely beautiful. So if I need to use them in the studio for rare occasion, I will use them in the studio because I'm comfortable and I can clean everything I want. But outside it's just too much of a mess. And if the pigment stains the glass like that, I just let you imagine what it does to your brush. If it's so hard to clean a glass palette, imagine what it is to clean a brush after phthalo blue or Prussian blue goes in it. And here you can see how easy it is to clean my palette with Cerulean. And this is how I clean all the color that you see in the back on my palette. This is how it gets cleaned, just with my palette knife. And if I need, I just scrape the remaining color off my palette, and my palette goes back to clean. So this is why I'm not using neither phthalo blue neither Prussian blue on my limited palette. I hope this was useful. These are two absolute beautiful colors, so you know, I have nothing against these colors. It just doesn't go in my workflow. I hope this was useful, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next one.